And welcome to another edition of Political Dregs. I am Calvin Robinson. Joining me this week is Hamish Hunter and Joel Davidson.
Hi, Calvin. Hi, Hamish.
Merry Christmas,
Merry
guys.
Christmas. Merry
Happy
Christmas,
Hanukkah.
and yes, and indeed, Happy Hanukkah. Our two favourite holidays have coincided.
I know, how great is that? We've obviously got
nice.
the New Year's honours announcements have come out as well. Any names on there that you recognise?
Well, there's certainly a lot of names on there, aren't there?
One of the joys of Christmas, isn't it?
Yes. I mean, I think, it's...
Well, we have to give an honourable mention to our mutual friend, Kishan Devani, who's on... He's getting a BEM for being BME, isn't he, or something like that? Not too
sure. The British Empire Medal. Look, I mean, I'm very pleased for Kishan. Nice guy. And he voiced concerns on Twitter as to whether this country was racist. So I believe, therefore, that medal may indeed disprove that. Hopefully, fairly conclusively. So, I'm very, very pleased for him. But a very nice guy, and hopefully a friend of the show as well. So well done, Kishan.
There we go. There's a couple of good teachers on there, namely Miss Dopalou. I hope I pronounced that right. She is the one who came up with no more marking, which is the scheme that schools like Michaela use, in that getting teachers away from endless hours of marking and just getting back to doing what they do best, which is leading from the front and directing knowledge and all that kind of stuff. So that's good. So there's been quite a few decent names on there. I don't know if you recognised anyone, Hamish.
The big story was Ian Duncan Smith's knighthood, which caused a lot of the right people to melt down on Twitter.
Yeah.
Interestingly, everyone remembers universal credit, and no one remembers actually the reason universal credit was brought in was to end the ridiculous system that existed beforehand, which was when people are going back to work because they went back to work did some hours of work, and they actually then ended up with less money in their pocket. So it hasn't been perfect. There's been problems.
Yeah, a much maligned scheme.
And of course, he resigned over cuts, didn't he?
Yeah, that's the thing. So everyone's like saying, "Oh, this is the guy who brought in the cuts to welfare." Actually, this is the guy that resigned when the cuts came in. It's a ridiculous argument that they're making.
Some of the cuts, it was
when I was a councillor,
but also, of course, the big absence.
But John Barker, yeah, fantastic that he's been binned from it. Hopefully, that's a permanent binning. But on the universal credit, yes, when I was a councillor in Brent, I went to visit the job centres, and the new job coaches that were brought in as part of that were actually very good, and genuinely they were helping people to get jobs. And as a result of that, we got, without sounding like a Tory hack, we did actually get real progress on creating jobs for people, and record low unemployment is something that really, one thing that Conservatives really should be proud of. And in fact, so that's really a completely misunderstood thing with IDS. I think largely it's because of his work with the Centre for Social Justice and his that he's disliked
people
so
don't
much.
talk about either. I mean, one of the things that people don't talk about is, of course, when the coalition government came in 2010, and IDS was DWP secretary, he'd done all of that work, all of that thinking, all of that research with the Centre for Social Justice, and there were problems, of course, with universal credit and the welfare reform. But compared with Andrew Lansley's health reforms, which were a disaster because they hadn't thought about them before, they were implemented, and we can argue about whether or not that's a good thing, but
So I missed that bit. The CSJ do some fantastic work. What's the issue there around him being involved with them?
It's
no issue, but he was involved with them.
Yeah, he set that up, didn't he?
Yeah, he was involved with them when he was before he was in government, and he was really concerned with raising extreme poverty and tackling extreme poverty in Glasgow. He spent time there, etc. So. Yeah, no, it's completely mischaracterised that side of him as some sort of evil. Really not true at all.
And I have to say that the reaction from the Labour candidate in Chingford and Woodford Green, which was to tweet, hysterically. I mean, just sort of, oh, come on,
behave yourself.
But no, you mentioned John Bercow. The big absence for me was, of course, Mr. Nigel Farage, who remains Mr. Farage, and not Sir Nigel or anything else.
Yeah, that's quite a surprise. Actually,
that was a troll too far.
Well, no. Again, I don't think so. I think that's fair enough. He's he remains an enigma. Farage. He's had more than enough exposure. I think We're bound to disagree on this, but yeah, I'm not a big fan of Nigel. I think he's going to get more than enough for himself out of becoming Trump's hype man.
But it's not about exposure, is it? That's not what the honours are there for. They're a reward.
Well, I don't know what they are about, to be honest. They're quite questionable, some of them, I would say.
I'm not the biggest Farage fan either, but I do think we wouldn't have had a Brexit if it wasn't for him. That he did put a lot of work into it, and his parties, both of them, have gotten us to where we are. Essentially,
No, we wouldn't have had Brexit unless 17.4 million people had voted for it.
But we wouldn't have had a referendum if it weren't for UKIP in the first place. Let's be honest about it. There's no way the Conservative Party would have given us a referendum.
I think he's arguably one of the most, if not the most successful British politician of the post-war period.
But not in seats in Parliament at all.
No,
but it depends how you define your success.
He had one political objective, which was huge and really unthinkable, and he's achieved it.
Quite.
Outside the system of government,
but by using that system,
maybe Mrs. Thatcher, you could say, but I query whether actually that was solely her vision. She probably adopted a lot of it from Mary Neave and Keith Joseph, who are sort of her intellectual, and in fact, although no one ever says this, but she owes a lot intellectually and politically to Enoch Powell in terms of his view of economics and government. But maybe her. But I think really it would be difficult to say anyone else. Yes, and even more remarkable with only ever having one person elected to Parliament as a UKIP MP in a general election.
Which I'm sure if Emil was here, he'd be saying this highlights the problem with our first past the post electoral system. But he's not, so we won't even bother discussing that. I know Joel's been keen to get back on the Dregs podcast because China's been in the news continuously over Christmas, and as a teacher, it's piqued my interest, all this talk about grammar schools. Do you want to run us through it?
Yes, I mean, again, I think this was sneaked in over the dead Christmas period. It concerned me. I mean, I've started to follow quite a lot of this commentary that's going on about what's happening with China. I mean, now there's a proposal to sort of limit the cap on foreign teenagers, or non-EU, I guess, teenagers over 16 who can come and get funded and to come to study in schools in England. And they're talking about China just lifting the cap completely, and for schools from China to directly fund places in British schools, essentially for A levels.
Yeah. Now, this has been going on for a long, long time. The majority of foreign nationals studying in our British schools are from China at this point. And I think there's like a 40% cap. And in many independent schools, they're at that cap. There's actually more Chinese students than any other student.
Right, and now state schools obviously won in on the act, and they want, apparently the government is sort of saying that they can lift the cap completely so that they can be funded by the Chinese Communist Party as well. Well, I think in the current status that is extremely dangerous and riddled with problems. And again, there is just a number of these sort of issues occurring at the moment, which the government really needs to take action on. I mean, currently the Hong Kong situation is quietened, but it's not going away, is it? And
but it comes back to our previous point in that we want to take a moral stance against what China is doing and how they're acting, but how do we implement that without cutting our nose off to spite our face? We need Chinese money, don't we?
Well, I just think that I just disagree with that. I think that that's a very, very crude thing to say, that this country should be just dependent forever on Chinese money. That's somewhat depressing in this season of goodwill, I would say. And I hope that you reflect on that, CR, and hope that.
No, I agree with you completely. I'm just playing devil's advocate to get out of you what is the solution, because I think we absolutely need to be taking the moral high ground. But how do we?
The solution is a newly, slightly more assertive, for once, British nation state. I mean, I think in terms of looking at national security. I mean, even look at Australia, let's say, just for a practical example, third of our size in terms of population. But they literally take the national security a degree more seriously than the UK seem to at the moment.
And we need to, and we need to bulk up our forces. But at the moment, as it stands, the only country that I can think of that can actually stand up against China is the United States of America. We're not there.
Yeah. Well, as I said, there are medium-sized countries such as, I would say, even Australia, to give a practical example, who be at least looking to in terms of their approach, their more robust approach to dealing with at least protecting their own national security.
The other thing I would say that we should be looking out for in the next year is that, of course, the Taiwanese are having elections in 2020.
Yeah.
The the more anti-Beijing party, which won a few years ago, is looking like it's going to win again. There's always potential for trouble on the Taiwan issue because all sides are so invested in that. And also, we've got to still keep a look in terms of what the British government is doing with the 5G network, Huawei, and all of that.
Well, exactly, the Huawei issue.
You're right. I think you're right in terms of we have not, because we have treated China more leniently because of their economic power. But if you look at something like these, the international community, the United Nations spends all its time condemning Israel, and it's there isn't the willpower there.
Well, hopefully Dominic Cummings is looking at our defence structure at the moment, isn't he? And he's going to rethink what we're doing and where we're spending our money, and so we can spend it more wisely. And we do need to build up our armed forces again to a point that we are a country to be reckoned with. But we still need to work on things like you mentioned, like the United Nations. We need to work on NATO. We need to work on all these systems and infrastructures that were set up as a global force and have kind of been left not really doing much other than criticising Israel for the past few decades.
Sure, but there are basic political own goals that we are making right now, still with our strategy with China, such as even considering allowing Huawei to have access to our 5G infrastructure when it's and accepting at face value the absurd denial that their board is involved with the Chinese Communist Party. I mean, it's completely ridiculous.
When our allies are guiding us against using it as well.
Yes, after Five Eyes, as I said, Australia, to give a practical example of a medium-sized power, would not have this, would not put up with this, and we are putting up with it, and it's frankly embarrassing. And we can all see this, and as I said, the patriotic voters who voted Conservative in the north of this country can also see this, I think. And again, this is an example of where the new Conservative coalition, which we're very pleased with, very patriotic in favour of this country, asserting itself, would not want and could clearly see that Huawei and the Chinese Communist Party go hand in glove.
But I also think that those voters probably don't want to get nuked.
But other positive side of this, I think Labour struggles with patriotism.
Why we've got to keep nukes.
So Labour just doesn't understand patriotism whatsoever. And we're fortunate that in this election they didn't get voted into power, and we now have probably the most patriotic government we've had in a long time. So if anyone was going to make a difference in this area, it would be these guys, right?
Well, as I said, they didn't promise to. Their manifesto was very non-committal on defence. It barely said. I think it said we would maintain spending at current levels, which can mean anything, and certainly wasn't a commitment to do anything more than that. So, I wouldn't be too optimistic on that front. But obviously, compared to the alternative, yes, of course, we can expect to see more investment in our armed forces. But I'm not sure it's going to be significant.
All right. Well, we also need to see more investment in the north, as we've seen. The Red Wall has broken down, and the North has voted Conservative in many places for the first time in hundreds of years. Now we need to maintain that vote share, and we need to give the party needs to give back to those voters that lent their vote to the Conservatives. To do that, they need to invest in the North as well as everywhere else in the country outside of London, I would say. But what and how? What do we need to do other than scrap HS2 and or replace it?
I completely disagree about scrapping HS2. This is more reason than ever why we need that basic infrastructure. I know it's expensive.
It is basic, though, isn't it? And costly.
Well, we can look into why it's a cost of overrun and et cetera, but the fact is that they have, and it's there, and you can't. It's just not realistic to say we'd scrap it now, given everything that's been invested in it so far. And we can certainly, as I'm an accountant, I would love to look at why it's gone so over budget, but it has, but we should be looking at building from there, and the two are by no means mutually exclusive. Having more northern infrastructure, rail infrastructure, and a high-speed rail link should not be mutually exclusive, and I want to see more of both. So I'm in favour of all this. Let's definitely do it. Have better rail connections throughout the country.
Okay, so not a fan of forward-thinking stuff like the Hyperloop or kind of really high-speed bullet trains. What is HS2 offering that we don't already have, mate?
No, but it's not about. I don't think it's about necessarily HS2. I think it's a. Yeah, we can debate the merits of that, but Joel is right. Infrastructure is going to be a key part of keeping that coalition of voters together, as is these sort of research centres and just essentially anything that will put jobs back there. But one of the things I've been saying for a long time was, if the Conservatives do take these voters, how do they keep them? Because they are not going to necessarily vote for Thatcherite economics and other things. I was quite interested to see, once the dust had settled from the general election, some of those seats where the Conservatives won in 2017 in those places. There weren't a huge number of them, but places like North East Derbyshire, Lee Rowland's seats, which he has now got a 16,000 majority. And you sort of think, well, if he managed to win it and then he's managed to capitalise on it, he's sitting on quite a nice buffer there. So absolutely, these people, these voters need to be kept on side. I do worry though, because I am a sort of small, lean state, liberal in the proper sense of the word. I worry that the Conservative Party, sort of almost by accident, is going to end up being more of a Christian Democrat type party, big spending, socially conservative.
Well, this was what the Blair government did in the early couple of years in terms of building hospitals, wasn't it? Obviously, we know now they did it on the cheap, or they did it using PFI, but there was a lot of genuine spend on terms of building new hospitals in those first couple of years. There was a massive increase in health spend, so there was a degree of infrastructure there, and of course, this government needs to do that as well in a sustainable way.
But of course, the thing that they didn't understand, and the genius of Dominic Cummings, is that he understood that that politics is much more cultural now and values based than it was in the 90s. The third way, the 80s, 90s, and the third way, Clinton and Blair, everyone voted. It was economics stupid. Now it is values based, and actually, I found it quite unpleasant seeing all of these people say, "Oh well, these northern voters, mining communities, they're not going to vote Conservative because their grandfathers will be spinning in their grave." Actually, these people can think for themselves. They wanted to leave the European Union, and they voted for the party, the only party that was offering that in most places. So, but it's been a shift. There's been a shift to values based. And a lot of the sort of old-fashioned, it's why big giveaways I don't think necessarily work. So it was really interesting to see the Labour manifesto, free broadband, etc. Just had no effect. If anything, people just thought it was miserable. So I think it's about making offers and doing things, but actually understanding what people want. Understanding what voters are looking for. Is actually as important as building railways and research centres and things like that.
Completely agree. As a Midlander,
if you actually, I think historians are going to look back at this election and think, what the fuck was everyone thinking? They had an election referendum in 2016 where 52% voted to leave the European Union, and then a general election in 2019 where there was only one party actually saying we're going to leave. I mean.
Yeah, and it was a catastrophic error, as I've said, from the Labour Party not to have worked on a cross-party basis when May was desperate to have at least left. I cannot believe they didn't think that how annoyed voters would be in the north about that and leave seats. I can't believe they didn't think that voters wouldn't care in those seats. Just for pure parliamentary arithmetic reasons, I cannot understand why Labour did not think of passing at least some sort of deal to make sure that we'd left the European Union before any general election. And they had the opportunity to do so. They could have locked in virtually anything. They could have made a brino to make this both of your skins crawl last year, but
well, they could have done that this year. They could have their election pledge could have been, "We'll have a soft Brexit, customs union, single market." Yeah. Look how hard the Tories are on their Brexit. Come vote for us. They were so stupid not to do anything like that.
So stupid. I mean, even a soft Brexiteer like me would have got behind it.
You'd have got behind anything, wouldn't you?
Well,
phrasing.
It's. No, anything that meant we left the European Union, Hamish, and which we should have done so this year, and we are finally doing it, and it was a little bit of a roller coaster, but I think it could have been done earlier. And my next assertion will be, which is one to monitor, will be that the terms that we leave on will be extremely similar to the terms that Theresa May had negotiated, in which you two derided several months ago. So that will be, I believe, my opening gambit for 2020.
All right, I look forward to seeing if you're right.
What are you looking forward to? What are you predicting for 2020?
Well, as a Midlander, I'm very excited about this investment in infrastructure up in the Midlands and the North and the rest of the country. Yeah, and I'm sure my father up there will be very pleased as well. He's one of these people that thinks London gets everything and everywhere else doesn't get anything. And to a degree, he's right. So it'll be good to get everything balanced out, particularly in education. The new funding formula, we'll see if that kicks into play properly. And schools that have been disadvantaged for a long time will start to get more money from the system. So all kids will get a good or outstanding education, which is important to me. So
100% agree with that as a former school governor.
There we go.
Yeah.
My prediction is going to be that when we all return to work and politics starts up, the Labour leadership campaign will get going. Everyone will immediately forget everything that has happened since 2015 and get very excited about Keir Starmer, and then some Corbynite person will win in the end, whether it's Becky Long Bailey or Richard Burgon or whoever, and everyone will tend to be shocked and surprised. But because
but that's not a prediction because they've already forgotten everything. They haven't learned a thing.
Yeah, because people are saying, Starmer is now the bookie's favourite, which is ridiculous.
Well, he should be taken apart for his stance on Brexit, frankly, and hopefully will be.
But the other thing is, here's a prediction. I think Sean Bailey, the Conservative candidate for mayor, will come third.
That is a very interesting prediction, and the London election campaign will be something that we will be following with close interest. We all have extensive experience of London politics, myself as an elected official, both of you two as very active campaigners and candidates with a lot of knowledge. So I believe fans of the show who are interested in London politics should certainly keep a close eye on Political Dregs in 2020.
There you go. So until the next one, thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe, like, and comment, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Do you want to do a friends of the show, Hamish?
Well, no, I do want to say hello to some friends of the show. I want to say hello to Alex Prentice at the Prenti, because I actually got some of his gin.
Nice.
That he's
Where's mine?
Well, no, I bought some.
Oh, right, okay.
Got my wallet out, Joel. And I gave it as a Christmas present, which was very good, and it was really nice to have him on the show, have a bit of a different view. That was nice. And
we are lining up. We'd like to get Richard from the Unionists in Northern Ireland perspective to come on. So maybe we can tag him or give him an invitation or something. But
another friend of the show, I think we should say hi to, is Richard Oasley at the Camden Journal, who has mentioned us in print, and especially Calvin's backdrop.
Yeah, this is not a bedroom.
Come on, Richard. Come on. We got our first mention in the Camden Journal. Yeah. So that was good. Anyway. Good stuff.
Good. Yeah, so all friends of the show are very welcome, and look forward to having a very exciting 2020.